Hey, what's up, guys? In this video, I want to talk about why freedom of speech is important in a democratic society. So, of course, without freedom of speech, there's no ability to express your ideas, whatever they may be. And if certain ideas are not expressed or are not allowed to be expressed, then there becomes basically a large diminishment of freedom and almost some form of thought control, because if people are only allowed to talk about certain ideas and concepts but not others, then basically that's like trying to eradicate certain thoughts out of society, even though there's no guarantee that the thoughts are wrong simply because they're banned. In truth, those thoughts should be able to be argued against and proven that they're not the correct choice to make with regards to various things. They should be able to be logically proven to be inferior to other ideas. So you should be able to discuss and argue why one idea is better than another, because otherwise you'll just be blindly following some sort of dogmatic schema with regards to how things should be done in a country. And without freedom of speech, without the freedom to discuss certain ideas, then things are just going to be pushed upon people, and people aren't going to be able to do anything about it. The whole concept of democracy actually is founded on free speech in the first place. Free speech is absolutely necessary for democracy, because you need, in order to have a democratic society, you need to be able to discuss those opposing sides. It's not supposed to be just one party in control that tells everybody what to do, because that's not democracy anymore. That's more of a system of a country like China. That's kind of like what China's doing, right? Or Russia, for example. Those countries where it's just the same party in power telling everybody what to do. Whereas in a democracy, it's supposed to be the case that either party can win, and the idea is that there's a more balanced approach with regards to how things are done in a country, and that's because the people can take viewpoints from both sides into consideration, and they can say, okay, some things from this side make sense and some things from that side make sense, and basically they can come to an agreement rather than just doing what one party thinks is right, as if the country is being run by a dictatorship or a monarchy or something like this. Democracy was supposed to solve the issues of a monarchy or a dictatorship, because even if the leader is a bad leader, then the next election cycle allows the people to take the leader out of power through the power of voting. But without freedom, you can't do that. If the government gets too much power, if one government party gets too much power, then you can't take them out of the. You can't dethrone them unless everybody revolts at once. And in the future, that might not even be possible if technology keeps advancing at the rate that it's been advancing over the last 20 years. Like, that's not going to be possible when the police force are robots and people don't even have guns. Like in my country, there's no guns or anything like that. I mean, obviously, this ideal situation isn't to have a revolution or anything like this. That's not what I'm advocating for. So don't misunderstand me. But there might not even be the possibility of a revolution in the future, is what I'm saying. If Because if robots are the ones administering the force and the people in power are unable to be questioned because they have silenced any opposing voices, they're not allowed to say anything on social media because social media is banned. We've already seen a lot of things be banned with regards to even being questioned on social media. Let's look back at the cough cough, because looking back at that situation, people actually supported not speaking about the science of the situation if the science was not agreeing with their opinion. People had an emotional response because whenever somebody contradicted their opinion, and their opinion was based on hearing somebody else's not scientifically, that's the important thing to note, not scientifically backed opinion regarding the cough cough, then they would immediately say, oh, you're okay with people dying, you want people to die, you want everybody to die, you're okay with that, you're basically a murderer, you're just as bad as a murderer, which is a very weak and emotional argument, because that's not the case of what people were arguing at all. You're not a murderer for having a difference of opinion in how things should be done. And there's a lot of science to get into behind that. And you can look at a case study, Sweden, for example. Sweden did not have governmental lockdowns, and they did absolutely fine. They had no problems with regards to extremely high death rates or anything like this, and the death rates of COVID. Oh, I wasn't supposed to say that. Whatever. The death rates of that were pretty, they were like the same as everywhere else in the world with regards to that country, and with regards to that sickness. A lot of other deaths were actually attributed to it because people were manipulating the results. There was whistleblowers who were discussing the subject at length. You can look at an interview on Jordan Peterson's YouTube channel. He did an interview with a whistleblower who was discussing, like, he made it public that the medical organization that he was a part of wanted him to misrepresent the data. And not just him, it was a message to all the doctors and this sort of thing in the field. And they wanted them to misrepresent the data to make it look like COVID was more serious than it actually is by attributing more deaths to it than was the truth. So when he made it public, when he made that information public, they tried to silence him. They were threatening to revoke his license. I think they might have actually revoked his license, etc., etc. Basically, they tried to silence him. I don't know if they were successful, but they tried to. And in general, they were just very effective at silencing any opposition with regards to the lockdowns. And then it makes you question, okay, if they basically made people comply with weak logic, like their argument for the lockdowns was not logical because they couldn't stand up to the opposition's to the logical opposing argument. Instead, they appealed to people's emotions, and they did so successfully with their rhetoric and propaganda. And because of that, the opposition was silenced and people were not allowed to speak about it. And then we had a lockdown for an illogical, in my opinion, reason. Like, it was not a logic-backed reason. So then, to me, that begs the question of, could it happen again? And not just that, but could it happen due to other reasons? For example, a lockdown in order to protect the environment, because we all know that everybody wants to reduce carbon emissions. So what better way to do that than by making everybody locked in their houses and not driving around? And it's a pretty illogical reason to make people stay in a lockdown, stay locked in their houses like little rats. But it's possible that the powers that be once again silence the opposing voices through legal powers and through using robots as police, for example, something like that, through robot, um, and just like through the threat of violence, basically making people be forced to comply with their laws through the threat of violence, and then everybody's just locked down and can't do anything about it because you can't say anything about it. It's against the law. And if you do, then the violence will come down on you. So it's just something to think about. So, anyways, if you found value in this video, leave a like, subscribe down below. I'm out. Peace.